highlights,
insight,
reports.
updates,
This is the progress.
progress.
The Progress Report.
Hello there and
Progress.
welcome to Progress Report. I am Lennox Gasper and we will be having the Progress Report on the Ministry of Legal Affairs with specific focus on the legislative reform. In studio with me is the Honorable Mohabir Anil Nandlall, and he will share with us the updates and give us our progress report. Welcome to this program. And before we get into the formal questioning for this interview, there has been some statement made from this civil society group that would have referenced some pointers that I have here in my line of question for you to address today. What are your comments there in response to what they would have mentioned?
Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of your program today. It's a privilege to be here and to be allowed an opportunity to speak on important matters of national development. Perhaps a convenient point to begin is to recognize that seminal to any democracy is a place secured for civil society organizations, a place secured for non-governmental organizations, a place secured for civic groupings, and a place secured for pressure groups. These are all organizations that form an important oversight apparatus over the executive to ensure that there is accountability, there is no misuse and abuse of power, and that the government acts always in the public's best interest and act in a manner that is always appropriate and proper for the public good. Our government recognizes this significant role that civil society and these organizations must play. And we have vowed and we are ensuring that they play the largest possible role in the discharge of that mandate which democracy would have devolved upon such organizations in any given society. So much so that we, as a government, in 2001, when we amended the Constitution, we inserted a provision that is widely quoted as Article 13, which ensconces a pivotal role for civil society organizations to play in the political system of our country. It's an aspiration of governance enshrined in the most supreme law of our country. So no one can second guess our commitment to that concept and principle. Having said that, I must continue to say that these organizations that are allowed this space and must play this pivotal role to which I have made reference must be organizations that are guided by some principles that are known. They must have an agenda that is in the public's interest. They must prosecute a mandate that demands from the executive and from other spheres of the state responsibility and execution of duties that are reasonable, that are fair, and that are designed to extract from these structures of the state holding power the type of responsibilities and duties that would only inure to the betterment of the citizenry. Those concepts should be what should inspire these organizations. These organizations themselves must be known. They themselves must, as a matter of course, and particularly because they have to play a critical role, and they are, if for want of a better word, oversight bodies. They themselves must carry themselves with some degree of responsibility, decorum, and rectitude. If they are being funded, persons should know who those funders are. Certainly, these organizations cannot be politically partisan. They must not be conveniently critical. They must not appear to be persecuting an agenda that is sinister, that is capricious, that is arbitrary, and that is unknown. That brings me to the grouping to which you have made reference. And this last statement is not an isolated one. Since the PPP Civic has returned to office, this grouping, manifesting itself in various ways and forms, have been like an attacked dog against the government. I looked yesterday at a press statement covered in the media, and that press statement, that news story, identifies a list of organizations that are alleged to be the author of that statement. Red Thread is listed, for example. Now, for the entirety of the APNU, AFC, and government, I didn't hear about Red Thread. They were very active from their formation while the PPP was in government until the PPP exit government in 2015. During the 5 months of mayhem, where persons attempted, including politicians, to destroy our democracy and destroy the will of the mandate of the people, as they attempted to pervert the election results, and the whole world was witnessing this fiasco, where was Red Thread? I don't recall, I may be wrong, a single statement from this organization. Suddenly this organization is now the author of this statement. Another organization that is credited to be the author of this statement is the Ursuline Convent. Now, I know that this is a convent. I never knew that this convent has ever issued a public statement before. Certainly not one directed into the political arena about anything. And then I see an organization called the East Coast of Demerara Development Committee. I am from the East Coast of Demerara. I have parliamentary and political responsibility for the East Coast of Demerara. I am part of the campaign to clean up the East Coast of Demerara. I'm going on the East Coast of Demerara tomorrow and Sunday. And I'll be in the communities right across the East Coast of Demerara.
And this committee
I
is
have
new
never
to
heard of this organization. Never. I don't know where this organization has come from. Then you have established organizations, such as the Tushao Council. I am informed, and I hope the information becomes public, that members, executives of the Tushao Council are unaware that this statement has been issued, and worse yet, that it is credited to the Tushao Council.
Wow.
I have spoken adeptly and in-depthly about this one-man organization called the Guyana Human Rights Association. This organization is headed by one individual since I am a toddler. I am now, I suppose, getting there in age. And this man and this organization are the only, they are still around. No other person that I know of is part of this organization. And I can go through the line, but I've just selected a few of these persons. Few of these organizations, sorry. So let us go back to the principles that I identified earlier. Who are these people? Where are these organizations located? Who are behind these organizations? Who are the identities of the persons who are issuing these statements and attacking the government, for want of a better word? What are their track records on issues of good governance, on issues of accountability, on issues of democracy? These are the issues that they have mounted a platform to speak on. As I said, some of them are very long-standing. So let's take the last 5 years and let them produce what they have said on similar matters when the PPP was not in government. I say that so that your viewers can understand that this motley assemblage of organs describing themselves as civil society organizations are not what conventional, traditional civil society organizations are. And their mandate is one that is indecipherable and, to my mind, sinister.
Okay.
Their composition is unknown.
Beautiful.
So that takes me to the issues that they are speaking
the statement,
about.
yes.
So they have included in their critical commentary observations regarding the local content legislation. Now, the local content legislation will go down in our legislative history as perhaps the most progressive piece of legislation ever passed by our parliament, directed to ensuring and preserving and protecting the national patrimony of our country for the benefit and use of the people of our country. I want to reiterate a statement that Prime Minister Motley made at the oil and gas conference held recently here in Guyana. The Honorable Prime Minister of Barbados made two fundamental statements. One, it is the duty, in fact the first duty of every nation, to ensure that its people benefit first.
Yes.
from their national patrimony. And secondly, we must never allow a country's people to become tenants in their own lands. I didn't say so. Prime Minister Motley said that. That is what the local content legislation is about. To secure for Guyana and Guyanese a fair opportunity to participate and partake in the oil and gas sector. Yes, it is slanted, and we are cognizant of that. That is the nature of local content policy and legislation. Every country that has gone down this road have done exactly what we have done.
So what really was their central issue with the local content policy?
The article doesn't explain what really is the gravamen of their contention, but they list that as one of the poles of their criticisms. On the question of consultation for that bill, we had nearly over 1 year of consultation by a team nationally established, broad-based, representing various interest groups in the country. They spent an entire year consulting and compiling a policy paper. That was the policy paper that we used to inform the draft of the bill. We borrowed guidance from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Norway, from Trinidad and Tobago, and many other countries. I can't remember them all now. Canada, I believe, too. You saw the delegation from Ghana with whom we interacted and exchanged views and took guidance from. They were here on 2 occasions, including a professor. Then when we had the draft, we consulted widely with all the organizations. The opposition, belatedly, although, sent about 14 recommendations, 12 of which we incorporated. Yet, this organization has a problem with the local content bill. The elected opposition supported the bill in the National Assembly. So, who is this phantom group? That's how I'm asking.
Yeah.
On whose behalf are they acting? This grouping, as I said in a Facebook post, it has several manifestations. It's like an octopus. So you have this here, you see, is one
Article 30.
one hand out here. Then you have another faction that is challenging the oil and gas sector in the courts. And they are bringing in lawyers and so on from overseas. They have a series of litigation. Then on another front, they are pretending and arguing that we are the oil and gas production sector in Guyana is going to destroy the world. Although you have oil production taking place in Saudi Arabia, in North America, right here in Trinidad, in Venezuela, for hundreds of years. But little Guyana now trying to tap into its resources so that its people who have lived a life of poverty and impoverishment can get a better life. We mustn't do so. We must keep the people of Guyana in abject poverty and subjugation, while the resources to which the people are entitled by law and under the Constitution must stay idle. And you and I mustn't benefit from a better quality of life. Forever, we must be regarded as an inferior people. And whichever country we go to, we are in awe at the people's level of development and standard of living. We can't aspire and achieve that in our lifetime. No, we are a doomed people. So I want to know, as a Guyanese, forget that I'm a minister or I'm a government person, who are these people? Whose interests are they representing? Who is funding them? I believe that there is some organization somewhere or organizations somewhere that have an agenda that is unknown to me, who are behind these different groupings of people. And when you examine what they have a problem with, you know what they have a problem with? You know one of the criticisms that they level against the government? They are apparently annoyed at the pace at which the government is moving. We have a developmental plan of Guyana, for Guyana. We have a manifesto. For the first time, Guyanese have a real opportunity of living in a better country and enjoying a better standard of life. And we are fortunate to be in the seat of government, and we are going to deliver that to the people of Guyana. That is what we promise.
Interestingly, though, Minister, on the same note that you would have mentioned regarding their concern as it relates to the pace at which the government is moving, in less than 2 years, your very ministry would have reviewed and even passed some new critical bills, of which we would have brought you here to
I have listed
on.
in my parliamentary speech, in my budget speech, for the year 2022, some 40-something major pieces of legislation.
Exactly.
Just for this year alone, right? Already, look how many we have passed over the past 2 years. The National Resource Fund Act. That is another one that they're concerned about and they're leveling criticism against. Now, I don't understand why they are surprised, or anyone can be surprised, that we would have not adopted the law that was passed by APNU AFC. We said that when the law was being passed. One, that it was passed after the no confidence motion and by a government that was defeated on the provisions of the Constitution and therefore had no power to pass legislation. That was our first criticism. Our second criticism was that it did not have the type of accountability and transparency framework with which we are comfortable. We proceeded to say that we will put a law there that removes the tremendous accumulated power vested in the Minister of Finance, and we will broaden it to be held by different persons who are to be selected by different processes, right? So rather than a monolithical concentration of power in a singular minister, we are devolving the power. How can that be unaccountable? Are we not doing exactly the opposite of what was there? That what was there was unaccountable. We said that we are welded to the Santiago Principles. The Santiago Principles are some principles that must govern this type of legislation. Our legislation was examined by a gentleman by the name of Andrew Bower. Andrew Bower is considered to be one of the most renowned experts in the area of oil and gas and accountability framework relative to sovereign wealth funds. He advises about 20 different governments across the world in oil and gas and in related matters. He is the advisor to the G8 Summit and the G20 Summit of Nations. This gentleman has all types of qualifications in this area. He has written books. He's one of the most sought after consultants. This gentleman came to Guyana and praised our act. What is Mike McCormack's qualification in terms of National Resource Fund bill, or in relation to oil and gas sector, or in relation to the level of accountability required? What is red thread? Who is in red thread, and what are their qualifications to contradict the opinion of a universally recognized expert? Who is the, with the greatest of respect, the National Tushao Council, who there have expertise on an accountability framework for a sovereign wealth fund legislation? You understand the point I am making?
I understand you fully well,
right?
and I'm sure that our listeners have understand and are clear with what you're saying.
These are the reasons that amalgamate to convince me, and should convince the avid listener, that these people have an agenda that does not coincide with the national interest of our country. In fact, they have an agenda that seems to be subversive
and counterproductive
to national development in Guyana. And it is the duty of every Guyanese to call them out. They invoked the old bogey argument of racial discrimination. Now, every time a critic of the PPP government can't fault our pace, although he's faulting our pace at which we are developing, they can't fault track record, they can't fault an improvement in the standard of living that is being seen, they can't fault the big businesses that are coming to invest, and the five-star hotels that are lining up, and the investors that are lining up to invest in the country. They can't fault the number of jobs that are being created, the number of house lots that are being distributed, the number of housing schemes that are being constructed across the length and breadth of this country, not to mention the infrastructural explosion that is taking place. When they can't fault on none of these things, they run back to the old hackney horse argument of racial discrimination, right? So they have invoked that.